A salvo of gunfire rings out in Bula Martown, Lower Shabelle, an administrative unit in southern Somalia. This spot is vital as it's the food basket in a country often enveloped by prolonged bouts of drought, leading to starvation and death. In August 2014, a joint offensive led by the African Union Mission in Somalia and Somali government soldiers encircled the Al-Shabaab terrorists in a cul-de-sac. The town previously provided finance for the insurgents through taxation and extortion of residents and travelers. Major General Dick Olum, the Mountain Division commander who doubles as the commander for Operation Shuja in the neighboring Democratic Republic of Congo against the terrorist Allied Democratic Forces, led the attack on the Al-Shabaab.
The Al-Shabaab really resisted. They fought very hard for it. You can see the tires that they burnt in the city. You can see how they were firing on us from the rooftops. But I'm so sure they have all fled towards Barawe. Of course, you very well know Barawe is my next target, and as soon as I'm through with Bula Martown and Kutunware, I'm moving to Barawe. After
their defeat, the Al-Shabaab escaped the boiling cauldron, leaving behind a jubilant population freed from the shackles of oppression and insurgent rule. Since its independence on July 1st, 1960, Somalia has mutated from a civil war in the 1980s and later converting into a bastion of global jihad and piracy. When President Siad Barre's government collapsed in 1991, clans and factionalism parceled out territory as conflict and a hunger crisis convulsed the country. Thousands died as parts of the country, including Somaliland and Puntland, seceded from Somalia. On December 9, 1992, 1,800 United States Marines arrived in Mogadishu, Somalia, to spearhead a multinational force aimed at restoring order in the conflict-ridden country. In early December 1992, outgoing US President George H.W. Bush sent the contingent of Marines to Mogadishu as part of a mission dubbed Operation Restore Hope. Backed by the US troops, international aid workers were soon able to restore food distribution and other humanitarian aid operations. Sporadic violence continued, including the murder of 24 UN soldiers from Pakistan in 1993. As a result, the UN sanctioned the arrest of General Muhammad Farah Aidid, leader of one of the rebel clans. On October 3, 1993, during an attempt to make the arrest, rebels shot down 2 of the US Army's Black Hawk helicopters and killed 18 American soldiers. The US forces later withdrew from the trouble spot. Earlier on in 1992, President Museveni visited Somalia, where he met the warring factions led by Farah Aidid and Ali Mahdi.
We are very much pleased and gratified that you are here. The first president have had the opportunity to visit Somalia, to visit us, with us, in the critical moment in our history. We attach a great deal of importance to your presence among us here today.
There is mass starvation. There is a total breakdown of law and order, as General Aidid has confirmed in his speech. There is total collapse of the economy, as he has said in his speech. And I've also heard it from the international media. Then I started saying to myself, how could we help our brothers? with ideas, drawing from our own experience, the experience of Uganda. Because Uganda is rich in trouble. We have had all sorts of problems.
However, Somalia further disintegrated, turning into a sanctuary for jihadists, including Osama bin Laden's disciples in Al-Qaeda, Fazul Muhammad and Saleh Ali Naban, who had masterminded the US embassy bombings in Nairobi and Dar es Salaam that killed hundreds and injured thousands of civilians. As the strategy and doctrine of the UPDF evolved from its nascent guerrilla outfit to a modern army, it was able to crystallize a pan-Africanist agenda in its effort to pacify troubled spots across Africa.
At one time when we were in Abuja, we were even thinking of all of us contributing soldiers under command of a Somali general. But we help our Somali brothers, we help ourselves, because if Somalia is stable, even the neighbors will benefit. First of all, they will get rid of the refugees, they will go back to their country. Secondly, they will do business. Some of the countries like Ethiopia, they are landlocked. Somalia is part of the way, one way to solve the problem of the problem of being landlocked. There's a lot of mutual interest.
Building on its counter-insurgency experiences in northern Uganda, West Nile and the Rwenzoris in the early 1990s to 2000s, and building on the successes of Liberia in 1994 and 1995, where UPDF troops were deployed for a peacekeeping mission. Parliament in 2007 gave the green light for the UPDF mission in Somalia. On March 6, 2007, the first African army, consisting of 1,600 UPDF fighters, arrived in Mogadishu, the flashpoint capital, to undertake a peace support program under the auspices of the African Union Mission to Somalia, AMISOM. After 15 years of service in Somalia, the African Union Mission in Somalia, AMISOM, morphed into the African Union Transition Mission in Somalia, ATMIS, on the 1st of April 2022. The resolution, amongst other mandates, the ATMIS to support the federal government of Somalia in the implementation of the Somali Transition Plan and to transfer security responsibilities to the Somali security forces and institutions by December 2024. The Chief of Defense Forces, General Wilson Mbadi, provides the historical context and evolving security architecture that has enabled the UPDF to undertake ambitious Pan-Africanist missions.
Somebody defined it as an attempt to create a sense of brotherhood and collaboration among the African people, whether they are here in Africa or not. Now, if you come at a national level, it is, I think, also embedded in our foreign policy that good neighborliness and non-interference in the matters of the other countries. But if your neighbor has a problem, you should be able to go and help. I think that is the spirit in which Pan-Africanism is perceived.
By the time of the deployment, key government infrastructure and much of Mogadishu was under control of Al-Shabaab fighters, including the Presidential Palace, Parliament, Aden International Airport and Bakara Market, among others. The AMISOM force was under the overall commander, the late Major General Levi Karuhanga, and deputized by the current Deputy Chief of Defense Forces, Lieutenant General Peter Elwelu.
The first thing is that when we're landing under fire, and that we didn't know anybody, and it was not easy on where to start from. but we had to start. So first of all, getting our position was not easy, but we had to look around and we found some bush here and there, and we said, this is home. It has started from here. And by that time, our logistics had not yet come. Most of our logistics were in the waters, with the ship. I think they arrived after 14 days. So the soldiers had to survive on dry ration alone, without any hot meals, because we had nothing to cook with, and there was nothing. And it was not easy, especially when it came to the issue of water, because water, we had to ration water for the soldiers. And the worst experience that when some of our soldiers got sewage water, they thought that was water in Somalia, and they drank it. And what happened? Over 60 soldiers were affected with cholera.
By mid-2007, ATMIS was holed up at the airport and presidential palace. Alongside Somali government fighters, the Ugandan contingent made incremental gains, flushing out insurgents in their hiding sanctuaries. This intrepid spirit encouraged other African countries including Burundi, Ethiopia, Djibouti, Kenya to send troops as well. Today, the Ugandan fighters are occupying Banadir and Lower Shebelle region with 27 forward operating bases, a vast expanse of 240 kilometers. In turn, Somalia continues to reap the dividends of peace. Some of the lasting vestiges of the conflict, like concrete blocks pockmarked by bullet holes, are fading away, and high-rise buildings are emerging from the ruin of war across Mogadishu and other liberated towns. Old buildings are being given a fresh coat of paint, potholed roads are being repaired, passenger vehicles honk to escape traffic snarl-ups, neon lights are spread across previously dark nooks, and scores revel on beaches to escape the punishing heat across the second longest coastline in Africa. Many families who were previously living in refugee camps, including one of the most crowded settlements on earth in Dadaab, Garissa County in Kenya, are returning home. Traffic at the Aden Abdullah International Airport has soared, so have the number of ships docking at the seaport. Livestock exports have exponentially grown, generating foreign exchange as the economy gradually emerges from collapse. In May 2022, Somalia's nascent pangs of democracy were symbolized through a free, fair and peaceful election outcome that brought in President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud, who replaced Abdullahi Mohamed Farmajo, who accepted the outcome of the polls. Because of the high-stakes election, the Ugandan contingent alongside Somali government soldiers deployed heavily to ensure that insurgents don't disrupt the election, a threat to the peace and stability of the country. Yet, the story of the liberation of Somalia would be incomplete without the Singo Peace Support Operations Training Center in Nakaseke district. Located in the cradle of the NRM-NRA Liberation War, Singo, which was part of the Greater Luero Triangle, provided the cover for NRA rebels led by Yoweri Museveni to fight a guerrilla and asymmetrical warfare against the Milton Obote government and the military junta under Tito Okello.
If you have got a government which has closed off all other channels of peaceful change, what else could we do except to surrender, to resign ourselves to slavery? And we couldn't do that as long as the people were willing, because this is their own war. The people are actually the ones who urged us on to fight. If we do not have this support, we would never have started such a war.
In his autobiography titled Sowing the Mustard Seed, Museveni is quoted saying, "I had seen this area in 1970 when I had worked in the president's office. I had gone to visit some cattle keepers in Budimbo to the northeast of Chiboga town. On the way, I had seen those Chiboga Singo hills. Given my brief Mozambican experience of 1968, I thought those hills were good for any future resistance. Although the Renzoris were more suitable for us guerrilla zones, I preferred an area that was closer to Kampala so that the regime could feel the heat immediately." One of the historical guerrilla sections of NRA in the infant stage of the struggle was Kabalega in Nakaseke district. When the NRA captured power in 1986, Singo Camp was renamed Singo Military Training School. In 2007, it was converted into training grounds for urban warfare and renamed Peace Support Operations Training School PSO-TC. It also offers training for the United Nations GERD unit in Somalia. This unit plays a vital role to help bring peace and stability to Somalia and offers protection to UN staff and installations. Major General Sam Chiwanuka, who is the UPDF Chief of Production and Welfare, provides the historical role of Singo.
Singo, initially it was Kabalega. It was Kabalega during that time of 81. And it later alone changed the name when we took over power to Singo Training School or Singo Training Camp. It has its history because during that time we attacked Singo or Kabalega and a camp was established in that area. Quite a number of battles took place in other areas, but it was a spring unit. I remember when we went to Kabamba 2 to attack Kabamba 2. It was in Singo. We left Luwelo 83 and our president planned to go to Kabamba 2.
The Commandant Singo Peace Support Operations Center, Brigadier Max Gumisiriza, gives the strategic importance of this training base.
The training done here is specifically focusing on pre-deployment training. It is mission specific. We prepare soldiers for missions outside Uganda. And the dominating mission has been that of Somalia, from AMISOM, which is a African Union mission in Somalia, to now ATMIS, which is African Union Transition Mission in Somalia. We also train for UN, United Nations GERD unit, which is also supporting UN in the mission area of Somalia. We also train for Equatorial Guinea, where we train the Uganda military training and mentoring team.
Much of the training dovetails armory, motorized, tank, artillery and air force. It is here where the first batch of the Ugandan contingent fighters trained. Today, foreign instructors offer skills and training to thousands of soldiers deployed in Somalia. During this simulation exercise, L-39 jet aircrafts carry out attacks from the skies. Most of the attacks are on target. The Commander Land Forces, Lieutenant General Muhanga Kayanja, is a veteran for the treacherous battlefield. He explains why the UPDF had to evolve into a professional modern army.
Of course, the National Resistance Army was a guerrilla force. But if you are to modernize to face the current challenges, both internally and externally, you need to employ the combined arms to be able to succeed in warfare. Yeah, it has happened outside, especially outside the country. For example, in the year, I can remember in 2007, we had to deploy in Somalia, in Mogadishu, because the government in Mogadishu was being threatened by Al-Shabaab, and we had to carry it out rapidly to respond to the advancing Al-Shabaab by then, to capture Mogadishu city, and we stopped them from capturing government. I remember in South Sudan in December 2013, we also carried out a rapid deployment to stop the White Army in South Sudan from capturing government there. So we also carried out another rapid deployment then twice in fact in South Sudan.
The expectation that you may get involved in a peace and security intervention in another country makes you prepare better. It makes you prepare better. It makes you equip yourselves better. It makes you professionalize your force so that you are able to fit in a multinational, corporate environment in which you are operating.
In 2013 and 2015 respectively, Kanja led the UPDF to halt advances of the White Army in the flashpoint capital of Bor in Jonglei State and rescued Ugandan nationals trapped in Juba and other parts of South Sudan after fighting broke out in the neighboring state. The female officer is an artillery expert based in the Field Artillery Division in Masindi. She is amongst the soldiers that fought Al-Shabaab insurgents to restore peace in the country once scarred by conflict.
As someone of artillery, we were working together hand in hand with people of Air Force. And Moi, and for us, we were waiting from them. The moment they inform us, telling us that the enemy is near, they give us coordinates, we feed it onto our gun. After feeding, that's when we engage the enemy. Normally, it's not on daily basis. Sometimes they come during the day, sometimes they finish some days, sometimes they come at night.
Uganda's post-independence history bears parallels with that of Somalia. It was interspersed with anarchy and instability until the NRM restored stability after the Luero Liberation War. On February 6, 1981, the NRA launched its first attack on Kavamba barracks to mark the commencement of the liberation struggle, which rode on the popular wave of peasantry support in the Luero Triangle. As Uganda prepares to mark the 42nd Tarehe Sita Day, the UPDF Chief Political Commissar, Major General Henry Masiko, reflects on the doctrinal evolution of the UPDF.
So in a way, a new chapter is written when a new ideology of liberation and pro-people, those are the two key principles. Liberation, revolution. We are not just to be there as if we are doing a job for money. No. For us, we are for laying a foundation of fundamental change. Jeshi la mapinduzi, jeshi la ukombozi. This was the huge difference from the pre-colonial tribal armies, from the colonial oppressive and exploitative army, from the post-independence, really largely colonial army, which had just been given a new name as Uganda Army, but which maintained the old ideology of sectarianism and people. So we now shift to a new people's force, working for the aims of transforming society, aims of Africa, because remember, FRONASA is produced in the womb of a Pan-Africanist setup.
The message I can give to the youths who are in UPDF that NRA came from very far. NRA, UPDF has a rich history. Patience pays, and let them try to share with those who are still alive, who started this trouble. They have a rich history to this army, and we are very sure we shall move and stay long. And the name of UPDF, what they must know, these younger ones, it stands and it's supported by the population. Without the civilians, we, the combat people, we can't do much. So we must respect the civilians. It made us capture power because of the civilians. So the civilians, it's one of the weapons for peace and stability of the country.
Uganda is largely peaceful with a few flare-ups of violence, especially in northeastern Karamoja, where cattle banditry has now been placed under control and a number of rustlers charged in court and detained. The UPDF continues to provide a vital role in securing peace, including the current deployment in the neighboring DRC as it seeks to annihilate the Allied Democratic Forces terrorist group holder in the restive pockets of eastern Congo. These missions come with personal sacrifice and risk.
You know, you cannot count the costs in terms of providing security or peace. It is a sacrifice. I think the government has sacrificed a lot. Our government, Uganda, sacrificed a lot in terms of personnel, in terms of equipment, in terms of everything. A lot has been sacrificed, quite a lot. But it is a sacrifice. Somalis are our brothers, and when there is peace in Somalia, there is peace in Uganda. When there is instability there, it all affects us here. You saw what happened here during the World Cup. We had very serious issues here. And up to now, we see it happening. We see what's happening in the DRC. It is connected to Somalia. So it is about a sacrifice. When you look at it, we go into the costs, you may not be able to do anything. But for us, we said no. Taking into account our Pan-Africanism principle, we said, the government said, our president said, no, we must do something for our brothers and sisters in Somalia. And we have done it. It has not been easy. It has not been easy, but we are there, and there is a lot of hope.
As Somalia marches towards statehood, the commitment and resilience of the Somali citizens and the federal government against terrorism must be commended. So, and the names of the Ugandan troops who died at the battlefield in the Horn of Africa will forever be etched in the annals of history as heroes and heroines who heeded the clarion call to the battle trumpet to rescue their neighbors. Today, their blood continues to nourish the barren lands that have provided a beacon of hope in a country once profiled as a failed state.